Hello everyone, this is Daniel aka Bbeltdan and welcome to episode 11 I believe of me building a Skeksis puppet. So what we're going to do in this episode, or my goal is to try to go ahead and continue to texture out the head. I'm going to focus on trying to get the metal portions of the beak done, at least some of it. It might not necessarily be completely finished because, as I mentioned in the last episode, I'm still going to go through and try to do a lot more of, finessing with the textures and the skins and trying to get highlights and all that other kind of stuff. But we're also going to go ahead and in this episode start working on the other mechanism that I've mentioned about, to where that mechanism is going to be mostly designed for controlling of the mouth and maybe a couple of additional features as well. I'll come back to that in a minute. But what we're going to start off with now is to show you is when we left off, I started putting on this particular portion of the skin here around the eyebrows. I left some material off in the back that was eventually going to drape down to here. But in that episode, I expressed that one of my concerns is that this texture, this material, just looked a little bit too clean. It looked a little bit too bright and shiny. It wasn't really quite jiving very well with some of the additional textures, especially right here around the eye. So I wanted to experiment, so to say, and trying to get the look that I want, or try to make this look a little bit more natural. So after a little bit of experimentation with some of the spare material and stuff, I finally came up with something, and so I want to go ahead and show you. This was before. As you can see, just look at the way the light glances off of it. Look at just the color difference between the rest of it. It kind of matches this but not this. It looks a little bit too contrasting. And now I have that right there. Yeah, that right there looks much better. What do y'all probably think? It looks a little bit less contrasty to what, contrasty, is that a word? But it looks a little bit better compared with this material. I could still go through and try to kind of lighten this up a little bit so I get a nice little transition here. But yeah, this looks much better. I'm going to go ahead and do a close-up shot here that you could probably see. As you can see, not only did I lighten up that material and gave it just a little bit more, texture, so to say. I keep using that word texture too much. But I've also went ahead and, as you can see, put in some wrinkles and things inside. I want to go ahead and try it. I had plenty of material left. Some of this was due to necessity because of all the extra material that I had. I had to try to tuck it away somehow, and I had to make some cuts, so I thought what would be the best way to hide those cuts, but to go ahead and put them and hide them by using some wrinkles. So it looks very well. And what I did to get that was actually very simple, is that I just took my X-Acto knife here. Alright, so I'm zoomed in, and all I do is I just take this and just kind of just scrape it along right here, as you can see. And what that does is it knocks off some of this newer material, the top coat there, you might probably say. Therefore, what I think what's happening is that it's actually causing those little bumps in there, that what it does is it diffuses that light. I mean, you can see right there immediately how much of a difference that light is reflecting off of this material from that material. So I just continue kind of hitting it a little bit. And yeah, you can already start to see it's not only lighting up, but time to do the laundry. But it's not only lighting it up, but it just diffuses that light a little bit, so it's not as bright, it's not as shiny and clean and everything. So that's what I got right now with this. Looks a lot better. I'm actually a lot happier with it right now. Not only the changing the look of the material, but also adding in these additional wrinkles really kind of adds that character. And I still got some more stuff that I'm going to do to it to kind of make it look a little bit more realistic and alive. But we'll touch with that in just a minute. But now what I want to do is I want to just temporarily kind of put the skinning off to the side. I've been working on the skinning almost every single day since episode 9, and so I want to kind of give that a break, step back just a little bit to try to work on a couple of the other components of this. One of the components is the control mechanism that I can potentially use to control this particular puppet head. Now, if you remember way back in, I think it was episode 3 or 4, somewhere early in the episodes, I've already showed you the wooden contraption that I made, where it was modeled after my use of using a bucket truck, an electrical bucket truck that I use on my job sometimes. The way that the controls work, and that you can operate with just one single control. You can operate the boom of the truck, the upper boom, the lower boom, and even cause it to pivot. And there's even additional controls in there that you could use to turn the bucket that you're in out this way. But the other one that I was wanting to design, because if this was completely cable operated, it would be able to have it to where one puppeteer can control all the mechanisms in the neck, the mouth, and the head utilizing 2 sticks. So we need to try to get as many different ranges of motions inside the control mechanism that can be transferred to the puppet. Now, the second one, I was originally intending to do that with 3D printing. I'm going to use 3D printing. My wife is watering the yard, so that's what you probably hear that noise is, but it's okay. But I'm still going to use some 3D printing on some of it, but I decided I'm going to go ahead and build it practical. So this particular mechanism, which will look very similar to one that I've seen the Jim Henson Company use on many occasions, is going to be made out of primarily wood and some aluminum little strips here. I've already went out to the hardware store, got some of these aluminum strips. I think they're about, I don't know, they're in millimeters, and I don't know right offhand what size they are, but they're thick enough to where I feel like that they're very sturdy, but they also are thin enough and small enough to where they're kept lightweight. So for me to just utilizing these aluminum pieces, some wood, and some of these plain old cheap door hinges that I get at any kind of hardware store, I'm going to go ahead and start developing this and putting it together. Now the 3D printing is going to be coming into play to do the anchor points of where the cable is going to be anchored on and manipulated on, but primarily it's going to be all stuff that you can find at the hardware store. So let me go ahead and get started with that. I need to drill some holes, bolt this all back together, put some spacers in, do a little bit of work. I'm probably going to do that off camera, but I'll come back and show you how I've done it, and we'll go from there. So I'll be back in a few seconds. All right, everybody, and it's still a little rough. I still got a lot of work to do on it, but it's close enough to where y'all get at least a general idea of what my intentions are for this particular control mechanism and how it's going to work. You can see it's just aluminum pipe with some wood that I've put on, and it's screwed in. Now the base is temporary because I'm intending to probably either have it to where it's going to swivel, but at least it's a bigger base. I just right now just got on this piece of wood just to kind of just to kind of demo it out, so to say. This control mechanism, as you can probably guess, is primarily going to be utilized for controlling the mouth and primarily the neck. Of course, we have the mouth that moves right here, as you could probably see. We also have an additional control right here. Now this control here would be translating for the sneer effect. But there's also an additional movement right here, and that would be for the head bobbing up and down. And because the Skeksis tends to have kind of like a bird-like neck, these other 2 points would control points in the neck that would allow the neck to bob up and down or what have you. And then if I could get it to turn, it will cause the neck to turn. All the control or the mounting points for the cable, I'm going to go ahead and design and 3D print and then start mounting those onto this. And I also need to come up with the way on how my hand is going to stay inside here to be able to manipulate and operate very easily. I think it turns out very well. I mean, I have quite a bit of a movement. I may want to probably try to put some stop gaps into it so it doesn't fall backwards like that. I don't see any reason why I would want it to probably do that. So have it to where it stands straight up so I can relax if I'm moving, and then if I want to move the neck, then I can do that. But have it to where it just locks in right there. So I need to come up with those as well as a couple of other little things. So I'll be working on that, and you'll be seeing that more in the next episode. And so now with all that, I can now come back to working on this Skeksis head. I want to go ahead and finish up this side right here so both sides are consistent, but I mostly also want to go ahead and start working on this metal piece right here, the metal beak portion and his side right here. So we need to put on some more foam and then start taking this paper that we have here and start laying that across. So right now it's getting kind of late, so I'm going to go and pick this up tomorrow. But for y'all, all this is going to be is just a quick little cut, and you should start seeing me work on that. So, and everybody, after a little bit of a good night's rest, I went ahead and, as you can see, did a little bit more foam work onto this side to flesh out, so to say, the areas of where it's going to be covered by the metal prosthesis that he has. So I got that finished. So what I'm going to do now and how I'm going to approach this is that I took some masking tape and I did the same little trick that I've done before, where I went ahead and masked over the entire area, took that off, translated that over to a thicker piece of paper that is a little bit more sturdy and workable and doesn't worry about sticking to itself. So we'll get rid of that. And now I'm going to take this pattern and transfer it to one of these sheets of paper that I have here. So I'm going to go ahead and transfer that, and I'm going to use some contact cement to go ahead and glue all of this on to this as close as I can, because I wanted to try to make as much of a solid contact as possible, because I'm worried that if it bubbles up because there's an area that's not quite glued up properly, that's an area where over time it could start to separate or it could rip or what have you. I want this to be as fixed to the foam as possible. Normally I would be using some some spray adhesive, but I don't want to get any of it on any of the finished flesh areas, so we're going to try with that contact cement. So let me go ahead and do that, and I'll cut back in and we'll see how it looks with this material on the beak. Arr. All right, everyone, and here it is. It's, once again, it is not finished, to say the least, because right now with just this paper on it, it kind of almost looks like it's a part of a natural beak to a certain degree, just glossier. But I want this to look like metal. So to do that, as mentioned, I'm going to try to put some rivets on here and also some strips that's going to make it look like that there is a kind of a support skeleton on this. So that's the idea of what I'm wanting to do. Plus I'll also go through and add some paints to try to get some more rust look, maybe brush it with some in some of the high spots to look like that some of this metal is being rubbed off almost down to a bare, not quite shiny, but more of a grayish type tone. So, just like with everything else, just like with this, remember this piece right here last week didn't really look all that good, but once I went through and started texturing it and putting in some additional details, it's actually starting to look very, very believable. Same thing with this. When I get done with this, it's going to start looking a lot better. I still need to try to go in and work on some areas with some of the seams, like right here, it's not very, I'm not aiming for professional quality here, but I want that to look a little bit better. And yes, this beak was pointed out to me by my wife that it seems like it's jutting out, that he has a bit of an overbite. So I'm going to try to see if I can work on that. I'll shorten this piece right here. It should be very easy. I got quite a bit here that I can work with. So we got some things to move on. So with me doing the details on this, getting this front beak all done, and working on this other control mechanism here, I think I'm at a point to where I could probably go ahead and call this episode done and get ready for part 12. Alright everyone, and to complete this episode, I want to go ahead and kind of mention to you a conundrum that I'm facing, and I want to get y'all's opinion on this. When I started doing this series, it was my intention that I would try to have this Skeksis finished, hopefully before the new television series, The Dark Crystal Age of Resistance, actually comes on Netflix. And here it is August, so it's going to be coming out pretty quick. So I don't know if I'll be able to meet the goal if I continue with the original plan. And what I mean by original plan is to have it to where it would be completely automated, or not automated, but completely controllable through cables, including the mouth, the neck, and everything. Now, if I adjust and alter my plan ever so slightly, I can probably get it finished. But what I would have to do is I'd have to abandon the cable operated mouth and neck for right now, and have it to where it would be hand operated and arm operated for the neck and the mouth. If I do that, I can get this to where all the skinning is done, so it will be finished hopefully before the Dark Crystal Age Resistance comes out, if it's not already out by the time that I release this video. And if I do that, I will come back and probably finish everything else, the intended cable operated mouth and neck mechanism. But who knows, maybe I might even just abandon that all completely and call it done if I can just go ahead and finish it. Because as of right now, besides just a couple of small adjustments that I need to make, it is completely operable with using one hand to control the mouth and the neck, and using another hand with one of those control rods that I've created, the one where you put your fingers in and each finger controls, where I can have the blink mechanism, the snarl mechanism, everything else will be tied to that. So it would intentionally be, what I've wanted is an operated puppet head with all of those additional features. It just would not have the cable operated mouse, so it wouldn't be something where I could mount somewhere and then let people come up and play with the controls to get it to operate whichever way they want, which was kind of what I was hoping. But I am willing to go ahead and cut that corner off so I can get this completed. But y'all let me know what y'all probably think. Would y'all rather have me go ahead and finish skinning the puppet, and so y'all could see what it really looks like, and maybe I can do a couple of videos with it actually working? Or would y'all like for me to go ahead and try to see this to the very end and maybe start focusing on the other parts of the puppet, such as the cable operations for the lower jaw and the neck, and plus I have to design the whole neck mechanism. And if I do that, it's probably going to be a little bit late, and that's also going to run this series a little bit long. The other thing to consider is that I'm not working on any additional videos because I'm waiting for this to finish. So when I finish this project, calling it, done, then I can move on to some other additional videos, which I have a lot of ideas which I want to work on, and I do want to try to get to those, but I want to try to finish this. So let me know down in the comments below, what would y'all like? I'd love to hear from y'all, and hopefully I'll get some pretty good answers, responses from y'all before I actually start working on the next video, so we can either call the next video the last video in this series, or it'd be just another step down the line. So let me know. But until then, I just want to say my name is Daniel, aka Bbeltdan. This is me building a Skeksis puppet. I want to say thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.